if you have the right skill set and you have the right tenacity, whatever you go after, you will find a way to become successful at that thing. So it is very important to make sure that you're going after the right thing. And everyone's going to say, well, what do you mean going after the right thing? Of course, I want to build a successful business. Of course, I want to make more money. Of course, I want to start a podcast and, build a big brand and have people know who I am. Like, are you sure?
Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. We got Scott Clary on the podcast.
Man. I appreciate you inviting me into your home, dude.
Well, this is the first time we've done this here out of the house. I got a studio back in Canada, but we're in Florida. Scott, actually, guys, is a fellow Canadian. Moved down to Miami. He's entrepreneur, business market, or a business and media strategist, podcast host of the Success Story podcast, which is like 30 plus million downloads.
It's done well.
And he just was telling me that he's done like over 1,000 interviews. So he might just take over this conversation.
No. I was listening to your show. You're a great podcaster, and I love your show. Thanks. And it's very thoughtful, and you have really good conversations, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know if I really identify as a podcaster necessarily, but I do love having business conversations.
Hey, listen, I didn't identify as a podcaster when I started either, so you have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly.
You might enjoy this too much.
Yeah. I do enjoy it. There's no doubt about it. So, hey guys, actually, just you have a 10-minute. You actually have two podcasts.
Now really, I do.
Basically,
yeah.
The 10-minute daily is awesome. I was listening to it the other night, and I really, really, really enjoyed that. So, there's some super unbelievable insights.
And I've tried many others too. And I think that now, like, my full-time work is entrepreneur, but also content creator. And a lot of what I do is just testing different styles of content, seeing what works. So, you mentioned I have 2 podcasts right now, but there's been many others that I've tried, worked, haven't worked, don't like, love, whatever. So I think this is why every creator is an entrepreneur. I mean, the business you started, day one is not going to be the same business that you have year 5, year 10. It's constant iteration, and content creation, podcasting is no different.
I'm going to actually come back to that because I think it's a really great conversation. On a couple of different levels. And so thank you for that. But I do want to give you your dues here because, your Success Story podcast is like top 10 in business podcasts, top 3 in educational, I think. So congratulations to you. 300,000 subscribers to your newsletter. These are really unbelievable noteworthy numbers, I think, from content production. But you started in telecom, actually, which we didn't talk about this. Scott's been here for about 30 minutes, and we've been just shooting the shit. But I actually started early days in telecom too, way before you, because I'm about 20 years older than you. But I started with Sprint Canada. You started, I think, with Bell, and but then you kind of, as I understand the story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of saw some roll-ups happen inside the telecom industry and then went, holy smokes, these guys are making some big checks.
Yeah. Well, so I was always in telecom. The roll-ups weren't always happening with Bell, but I was working for a company that was acquired. And that was sort of an introduction to entrepreneurship, because one of the guys that I was working for at the time, he was acquired by private equity. So that was sort of my first true exposure to entrepreneurship, because he built a company starting in 1990, 1991, and fast forward to when it was acquired, whatever, 20-ish years later, it was just this massive exit for him.
What was it in telecom?
It was telecom as well.
Can you say what it was? Or
it's not around anymore. They haven't done so well since the acquisition.
Yeah. Well, oftentimes they don't.
So the company was called Digicom.
Okay.
And it was based out of Toronto. And they're not around anymore, and I don't really know what happened to them after the exit. But that was my first real exposure to entrepreneurship and equity and acquisition and exit event, and that was just a really interesting sort of eye-opening experience, because I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. So my family was really risk adverse. They were focused on, go to school, get a good job. My main plan was always law. Even in my undergrad, it's your undergrad for law school. You can do any undergrad and get into law school, but I was focused on criminology and criminal law, and I was going to go into law school. And the only reason why I didn't is because I didn't love school. I found it very boring. I got my undergraduate, but my thought was, okay, let me just see how much money I can make in tech. Let me see if I can sort of like, move up the corporate ladder, and let me see how far I can go. And if it all goes to shit and nothing works out, then I can go back to law
You
school.
backstop. Yeah.
Right. I
Right.
was never stressed about that.
Yeah.
But that journey obviously exposed me to not just tech, and I call Bell tech, like telecom tech, whatever. It's not like Google, Apple, Facebook, but it still is a version of a tech company, something that my family never took part in because my dad was government. My mom, well, she worked for university. She managed labs. She was as close to a scientist as a profession as you could be. And yeah, I just that was sort of like the gateway drug into entrepreneurship, because I got involved in tech, and then I started working for a company that was acquired, and that was my education in entrepreneurship. And I think that was probably one of the most eye-opening experiences in my life, because I just realized that if you start something from scratch and you build it, it's incredible what it can turn into. Like this company that was acquired was nothing. There was nothing there, and one entrepreneur, his name was Jeff Weiner. One entrepreneur decided to start it, build it, and then fast forward, it turned into life changing sum of money for him and his family. And that to me was a really interesting idea, because I didn't come from that. So
So actually, if you don't mind, I'd love to explore that. I mean, because you kind of have this journey. You go through tech, then I think you worked for a media company,
mhm,
and then chief revenue officer, as you
mhm,
said. Like, and we talked about this when you came in because you know it was interesting because I knew you were Canadian, but I don't think you knew I was Canadian. And then we started connecting, and then we got talking at in depth about it. But you come from a background where your dad worked for CSIS,
yeah.
as you said, worked for the government. Your mom worked for a university. Um, all great jobs, all great contributing kind of pieces, but not business, not entrepreneurship. And then somewhere along the line, you get the bug. And I'm interested in digging in that a little bit. Like as we were talking about it, I thought, I really would love to dig into this. And the reason why is
And I'll
not,
give you the context for what I was saying before. I
yeah,
said I don't know how I ended up the way that I am right now. So right now, I mean, I am an entrepreneur. I have a media company that I'm building from scratch, right? And I've tried a whole bunch of other things that some have worked to some degree, some haven't worked at all, which is pretty pretty normal for anybody who has tried to build something. I think that I am a complete 180 in terms of what I do from my job and my career than what my parents did. That one event, that exit event that entrepreneur had that I was exposed to, because it was a smaller company. The company was doing about $10 million, a little bit over 10 million before they were acquired. So in a company of that size, you get exposure to everything, which is nice. I think that's a great place actually people to start their careers, because it was a 10. I think when they were acquired, it was running at 11 million. Um, there was about 50-ish people in the company, but you get exposure to absolutely every part of the company, everything that's happening. This is why when I say like I learned about entrepreneurship, I learned about it because I was speaking to the owner. I learned about it because I saw like every single job function. I learned about it because I met the guys that were acquiring the company there when they were walking through and having the meeting. Like I learned everything. I just saw everything. And if you were in a larger company, you wouldn't get that exposure. So this is as close to entrepreneurship as you can get, working in this sort of small scale up, sub $10 million range. Like the only other way you get this close to entrepreneurship is if you just start your own company. But when you just start your own company and you sort of follow the path of like the Stanford dropout, go start a company in your dorm room, that's when you have those 95, 98, 99% failure rates, because you have no idea what you're doing. You don't know anything. You have no business acumen. You don't know how to hire. You don't know how to sell. You don't know what a P&L is. You don't know anything. So that's why you have these stories of these like 98, 99% entrepreneur failure rates. So I think that for a lot of people, yeah, it's good to be entrepreneurial. And I do believe that everybody at some point in their life should try something entrepreneurial, even if it doesn't turn out to work. Um, Whether or not it's just monetizing a skill set and selling that on the side. There's a million different ways to be an entrepreneur. And I think you learn a lot of good skills in just trying to build something. But to increase the chance of succeeding, I think it is smart to work for a small company and start to figure out the mechanics of what a company does and how they operate and how they work. And I think that increases your likelihood of winning when you do start your own thing.
Yeah, I think, as you were saying that, I was like, cutting your teeth in a business where you can kind of learn as it grows and you grow with it.
Yeah,
And the other caveat I would add to that is like trying to find the right business owner to work for too. Somebody
true,
who is like
true.
really wants to grow the business, and is doing it intelligently, not like whimsically.
And wants to grow the people
Right.
that are working for him. I'll give you a very good example for this particular guy. Um, there was no pension with this business, right? There was not enough money to afford like a proper pension like you would get if you were working for the government or working for like Fortune 500 or Fortune 100. So instead of offering a pension, um, people can complain or not complain about whether or not every business should offer a pension to their employees. But if you're just, if you're sub 10 million, you really don't get the luxury because there's not a lot of margin, right,
No,
in your
right.
business.
Yep.
So what he would do is you know what a lunch and learn is when you learn about a vendor or a partner and they come in, they do a presentation about their products, or there could be a lunch and learn that just tries to teach you anything that would help you in your job. He would do investment classes. So he would sit down with everybody in the company and he would teach them about the S&P 500 and how to invest and index funds and ETFs and all these different options to create wealth for people that had no idea how to invest. So the way that he structured his retirement for his employees was, let me show you how to create wealth yourself, because traditional education does not teach you how to create wealth. So again, somebody like that, great person to work
Yeah,
for.
you're with the right owner there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now, this
100%.
is not, I don't think, standard by any means, but somebody that's like, because he was an entrepreneur, but he also loved the game and he loved teaching the game. And I think he got a lot of enjoyment out of passing over what he learned to other people, because he understood, I guess, for him, entrepreneurship and investing was, I mean, this life unlock, really, and it was. And I think that when you're around the right person, and a skill set or an idea has changed their life and they're a good person and they're like an altruistic person, that person naturally wants to pass that lesson on and teach that lesson to somebody who's just coming up and just figuring stuff out. And if you can, when you're first starting out, align yourself with that person who has figured out something and wants to pass it on, is just a good, thoughtful sort of mentorship figure. That can change your life in a variety of different ways. But yes, for me, it was being around somebody, and many people like that. Not just, I'm just naming one example. I'm very fortunate. I've had a lot of people like that in my life, but in particular, some early investing lessons, some early entrepreneurship lessons came from him. So that was somebody, that I guess had a huge impact on me. And I think that if somebody who's just starting out can find someone like that and get the opportunity to not just learn through like doing their job in a business, but also learn from somebody who's willing to pass on knowledge, um, I mean, that can change your career, but you got to look for that.
So do you think that was that one of the
One of
catalysts,
them for sure.
that really kind of drew you? Because earlier when we were talking actually offline, was you kind of said like I was part of the fabric of your life was, you know, learning and being raised in a government working
Very
environment,
safe
and you were
house.
like
Yeah.
I was like anti-entrepreneur, like I didn't not or not anti, but it
I
was
wasn't,
like
I just didn't know it.
it wasn't threaded in me
No, it
anymore.
wasn't. I think that was one of them. And I think that if, listen, there's a couple traits that I think are very important traits for anybody who's going to be successful at anything. And I think that I'm very fortunate that I'm a naturally curious person. So that is a skill that when you are exposed to information and you realize that just being more curious is that's the answer. You want to have a VP level job, you want to have a C suite job, you want to build a successful business, you want to go lose weight, you want to go look good, you want to have a great relationship. All the information to accomplish these things is out there. You got to be curious, you got to ask the right questions, and you got to be willing to learn. And I think that that is a skill set that I am very, very grateful for my parents for embedding in me, helping me realize how important that skill set is from an early stage, because that, coupled with the right exposure, has led me to today, really. Because a lot of other people that worked for that same company and had that same exposure, who are maybe not curious or not receptive for whatever reason, I mean, they still have great careers, but they didn't go try and build their own thing. They just got another job after the company was acquired. Like, they didn't push themselves to take the lesson and run with it. And I think that being curious and being willing to sort of expand your horizons and expand your knowledge base, that's where you start. So you said, was that one of the things? Yeah, that was one of the things, but it was also the fact that it was coupled with a personality that was like willing to take that knowledge and wonder, how does this impact my own life? And then constantly seek out more information, more knowledge. Just, I don't know. This is how I've built anything in my life.
This is interesting on a whole bunch of different levels. And just from sticking back with your
Yeah.
parents, it's like, obviously your dad worked for CSIS. So, obviously some type of
He wasn't a, yeah.
officer or something.
Well, he did investigations.
Investigations.
Yeah.
So, you got to be a curious person
I
by
guess you do,
nature,
yeah.
or you learn curiosity really quick in
Yeah.
order to be successful at your job. But I mean, I find that to be a very interesting distinction that you just made. I mean, I think for me personally, one of the things that I pride myself on is the quality of questions that I ask myself
Mhm.
first and foremost. Like, that was one of the kind of skill sets one of my mentors taught me. But if if you were you curious as a kid? Like, was that something that was
Very
ingrained?
much.
And
Very
then
much.
you just
I
now
just
then
carried that
applied
forward.
it to entrepreneurship and then went, oh wow, this might be the niche, rather than, because as a good lawyer, at some level you have to be curious as well.
Well, that's the thing. So the skill sets that make you successful in one field can make you successful in any field. And that's why we could talk about this in a little bit. I don't want to go there just yet, but if you have sort of these soft skills that you can apply to anything you take on, um, you just have to be a little bit careful, because if you have the right skill set and you have the right tenacity, whatever you go after, you will find a way to become successful at that thing. So it is very important to make sure that you're going after the right thing. And everyone's going to say, well, what do you mean going after the right thing? Of course, I want to build a successful business. Of course, I want to make more money. Of course, I want to start a podcast and, build a big brand and have people know who I am. Like, are you sure? Like, are you sure that you want, for example, to start a podcast and you have the pressure of, or just being an influencer of some sort, doesn't really matter, podcast, TikTok, YouTube, and you want to never have a private life again? Are you sure you want that? Are you sure you want to build $100 million business and have all the headache that comes with that? Or maybe you want to build a $2 million business and just have it as a nice lifestyle business. Do you want a business you can sell to private equity? Do you want to build the next FANG? Do you want to IPO? Do you want to have something you can pass on to your kids? Maybe you want to shut off at 5, because if that's the case, you probably shouldn't build a business. And maybe you can go work for somebody and you can get a very good salary and you have a little bit more balance. So there's a lot of different traits and skill sets that I would say help me become successful in whatever it is that I'm trying to do. But be careful, because if you understand those skill sets and then you persevere and you go after the thing for a long enough period of time, then you will find yourself being successful at that thing. And I don't think enough people properly understand the end that they're going after. Like, they don't really set a North Star. They just kind of start, which is okay. I think that starting, we're talking to an entrepreneurial audience, right? We're not talking to somebody that has a problem starting. We're talking to somebody that they probably over index on action, but sometimes they don't actually know where they're going. And I think that it's important just to have an idea of where you're going and have a North Star, a personal North Star for your life, your business. Because if you don't, and I've only gotten a glimpse of sort of your history and your past, but even you mentioned before, if you pursue a goal aggressively and you get there, sometimes the rest of your life starts to fall apart if you don't actually know what the North Star is for your family, for your kids, for your relationship with friends, for how much time you want to work versus not work. So I think that if you are listening to this and you are a highly ambitious person, just know that, yeah, curiosity, tenacity, extending your time horizon for what success looks like, these are all very important ideas, but know that you will get there. And if you aren't careful, then other things can sort of fall by the wayside in pursuit of that main goal.
Yeah, it falls under the bumper sticker. Be careful what you ask for, or be
Very
careful
much.
what you wish for.
Be careful what you wish for. But
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
It's
yeah. No,
very
it's
true.
true.
And
100%.
I know like the I think the content that I put out that gets the most hate, there's a couple things that I put out that get a lot of hate. But one thing that gets a lot of hate is when I just say, like, you wouldn't want Elon's life, or you wouldn't want to be a billionaire. Like, I don't know why people aspire to do that. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Most people, they don't even understand, they don't even understand to live the dream life. I mean, it takes a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percentage of a fraction of the amount of wealth that these guys create. To have a company that grows to that size, great, but it's never about the money anymore. So you have to have something else that's pushing you and driving you to build to that level. And to be quite honest, there's probably something a little bit wrong with you at the end of the day if you're building to that level. Like, you are so obsessed with the game, which is fine. But for the average person, where I say everybody should be an entrepreneur at some point in their life, I'm not saying go build $100 million company. I'm saying, why don't you monetize a skill set that you have? Learn how to give value to the market, learn how to sell a skill set, and then find a way to make $1 million a year through that skill set, which is very doable for almost anybody if they understand how to monetize and price themselves properly. And I think that that's a much healthier version of entrepreneurship. And that's why I don't necessarily think that entrepreneurship for most people is bad. I think everybody can be an entrepreneur, but I think that they have to define entrepreneurship properly. Anyways, this is going
No,
way
no, no,
outside the
no.
realm of like
It's actually
these
not.
traits, but
It's actually not, because we started talking about, you had originally talked about, podcasts, other podcasts you've started them,
mm-hmm,
dropped them off, and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. And I think it's actually extremely relevant when, as you were talking about it, what came to my mind, and I'm older, so I grew up with him as an influence. But Stephen Covey's Habits
yeah,
of Highly Effective People,
yeah,
his first habit is begin with the end in mind.
that's true.
And
Yeah,
so it's like, to me, I mean, that's really relevant from my perspective. There's probably a lot of people who are listening to this podcast who are like, who's Stephen Covey? but
I know him,
but
and he's, yeah,
but that, like, begin with the end in mind. And then and actually I did have originally in a question, which is, as you're developing content and you're iterating and trying new things, what is the what are the threads that you have found that you might look at it and say, hey, we started something, and this genre doesn't work, or this, and whether it doesn't work for you personally, whether it doesn't work for your market, it doesn't work for, I always say, like, every bad idea I have ever had started with a good idea at the time.
100%,
So,
a
like,
hundred percent, and that's
so
a good point too. It's not just if it doesn't work for you, if it doesn't work for the market. So, no, finish your question, then
no,
I'll.
no,
Okay,
I mean, it's really just not really a question. It's an
but
open conversation about, like,
you're right though. It's like you have to know where your North Star is. So I think it's smart to be rigid in where you want to end up, but very flexible in how you get there.
mm,
I think that's a very
mm,
important idea.
that's really good.
So I love teaching. I love teaching. Teaching is what gives me fulfillment. One of my first jobs ever, when I was very young, I had actually, from a young age, played a lot of tennis, and my parents put me in a tennis camp when I was very young in Ottawa. And you know, I don't even know when you start. Listen. I'm also cliche. I played a lot of hockey too, but like tennis and soccer was my summer sport. And say I went to the tennis camp when I was like 6 or whatever, or whenever you start sending your kids to do summer activities. And I grew up in this camp and I love playing tennis. And then the second I could, I was like a volunteer counselor. And then I applied, and then I was teaching kids tennis. And that was the most fulfilling. It was like you have somebody who knows nothing and is struggling, and then with like a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of experience, and at the time a couple months, you can completely change how good they are at tennis, but just how good they are and whatever it is they're trying to figure out. And that was a really fulfilling, I don't know, job for me. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love seeing transformation. I just absolutely love seeing transformation. And I think that in all my roles, And this has probably also made me I guess a semi competent leader and founder and CEO. But in all my roles, even the ones where I was working for companies, I always liked defaulting to like the teacher position. Like, let me train the new people. Let me help guide them through their first 3, 6 months, whatever. I just love that. So why I'm saying that is because when I thought about content creation and when I started the podcast, there was a few reasons why I started it. But I would say that the reason that was the most meaningful to me and the reason why I started a podcast and not other types of content at the time was I felt that podcast was the easiest way to teach people. I felt that long form conversation with context, interviews with people that have sort of figured out life, figured out the game, figured out success, however you want to define that, that would give people a lot of value. And that to me was the type of content I wanted to create. And that's always been the reason why I wanted to create content, because I could create different types of content. I mean, I know that there's types of content that grows quicker than business podcasts, self-development podcasts. I know that there's YouTubers that, I mean, there's been different versions of what goes viral on YouTube, but you could do like the prank shows, sports stuff, jokes. Like you could do a whole bunch of different fun, entertaining things on YouTube, even with your content. And it all works and it all builds an audience and it's all monetizable to some degree, but it's not what I wanted to do. I don't enjoy that stuff. I enjoy learning. For whatever reason, I enjoy sitting down with someone like yourself who's had a great career, who's built multiple businesses successfully and unsuccessfully, and unpacking what they've done, because that's the stuff I consume. And I wanted to create my content for a younger version of me. I wanted to teach younger Scott how to survive in the world of business and then how to figure out all the other stuff that's going on in his life. And that's my North Star as a content creator. Now, how I get there, I'm flexible. So if I get there through short 10-minute episodes, or if I get there through commenting on what's happening in the news, or if I get there through interviews, or if I get there through whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But I know where I want to go, because that to me is fun. I enjoy that. I think that sort of like sort of a general idea that I have about entrepreneurship and just like life is, if you give enough value, the world takes care of you. I've never given value and not figured out how to put food on the table. Now, I don't worry about the money first, especially as a content creator. That's not a smart thing to do, because content is it's a long game. But if you give enough value, you'll find a way to, pay rent.
So to the younger version of yourself, then I'm curious, like when you are looking at, some of the launches, some of the mislaunches, some of the uh, relaunches of something, like you're reiterating something. What would, beyond the North Star, like somebody's listening and they're going, okay, yeah, I know I got to have a North Star, but what if I don't know what my North Star is?
Well, that's where you got to start.
We're,
That is
right. So what are some of the things that help you kind of figure out what it was?
it's what lights me up and gives me energy. That's it. Like when I interview somebody, it gives me energy. When I jump on stage.
But how did you identify that early on? Like what were some of the things that made you go, oh yeah, man, like when we're literally talking about this, I'm thinking about young kids, like my son.
But I think you just got to try a whole bunch of shit.
Just try stuff.
Yeah, just try a whole bunch of stuff. I've tried a lot of types of businesses. Some I hate, some I really don't like. I've tried a lot of types of content. Some I just don't enjoy doing. Like I don't enjoy like doing trends on TikTok. I don't enjoy. I'm trying to think of other types of content that I've put out. Very tactical, like super tactical stuff in short form. It's useful, but I don't enjoy it as much. I enjoy, if I'm going to have like a tactical conversation about business, I like to do it in long form content. And I also understand that I enjoy it when I see results too. So part of enjoyment is what I enjoy. Part of enjoyment is like actually moving the needle in my business. I've done some angel investing. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I'm not great at it. So I don't want to, for example, become like a full-time investor until I actually know what I'm doing. I also like I invest in things that I know really, really well, and I don't invest in things that I don't know. And I've tried that, and I try to learn new things, and I've tried to learn how to invest in small early stage startups. I've tried to invest in like stock picking, and I never really get it. I haven't devoted the energy or attention to it, so I don't know it well. So I don't do well at it. I don't enjoy it. I've tried to put together masterminds. I've tried to put together event series as a business model, kind of like what YPO does. I don't enjoy hosting live events. I find it too stressful. I just don't enjoy it. I'm not going to do it as a business. Could I figure it out? 100%. I just don't enjoy it. I've tried to start e-commerce businesses. Some success, don't really enjoy it compared to what I was doing that was working, which at the time was the podcast. I tried to raise money to do a private equity play. And I would look for a business and I would raise money and I'd want to spin up an SPV and go buy the business. And I found out that it's really hard if you don't do big acquisitions, so like small acquisitions, sub $5 million acquisitions. There's a lot of I don't know how to say it, sketchiness with the numbers that you're looking at. Sometimes people are fudging the numbers and the ads, and it's very hard to find good operators to take over a business when there's a key man problem and the founder exits. I don't enjoy it that much. Now, it doesn't mean I won't always enjoy it, but it just means that I'm not great at it now. And if I'm going to be great at it, then I have to commit a certain amount of time and energy and attention to it because it doesn't come naturally to me. And I'm choosing at this point in my life to not commit that much time and energy attention to do like a half-assed job. So I've tried things that I don't enjoy. I know that if I spent more time and energy, I could enjoy them, but there's something that's working right now in my life that I enjoy more, and it gives me more fulfillment, which is my show, my podcast, me building out media. It's working, it's growing. I understand the levers to pull to take it to the next level. So that's what I'm going to focus on for now. So I think that if you think about what people's North Star should be, what I've kind of just described is the concept of ikigai, right? It's this Venn diagram of what you're good at. I'm going to blank on the exact sections, but it's like what you're good at, what the market will pay you for. And there's one other piece to it. It could be something along the lines of like what you enjoy or what brings you fulfillment. And there's a few other versions of this Venn diagram, and you can add other components into it. But ultimately, it's like this: what your North Star should be at the intersection of all these different components. And you won't really know what your North Star is unless you try a whole bunch of different things, try a whole bunch of different businesses, work in a whole bunch of different environments with different people, and then you start to understand what you're good at, what you're not good at, what your skill sets are, what the market will pay you for, and what gives you energy. And I think that that's over time, through enough trial and error and iteration, how you figure out what your North Star is.
And were you working on this stuff while you were working for somebody else?
Yes.
And then did you start your podcast while you were with somebody?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So like, I love that strategy for people.
I think that's a very smart way to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea, pre-revenue, pre-product market fit, to burn the boats. I don't like that idea at all, because that adds unnecessary pressure and stress on the entrepreneur. I think what you should do is you have your 9 to 5, you build your side hustle, your startup during your 5 to 9 and on the weekends. And now with AI, with agents, with obviously SaaS, you can also hire people in different parts of the world for much cheaper as well. All these different points of leverage can help you build a company with virtually no capital. So you can basically build a company on the side as a side hustle and operate just yourself like you are a 10-person team. So there's zero excuse. There's no barrier to entry. There's no gatekeeper. There's no reason why you can't build something in your spare time anymore. It's no longer like, it's just a will thing. If you want it to happen, you'll figure it out. And I know people have different amounts of time because they have kids, they have commitment, but still, I'm telling you, with all the technology and the resources available, one person with a few hours on the weekend and a little bit of education and upskilling can accomplish an incredible amount. And it's not like you're going to build a company and take it all the way through to exit, but you're going to build it, you're going to validate it, you're going to find product market fit, you're going to build your MVP. And then when you have some revenue coming in, when you validated your idea, when the market's validated your idea, that's when you can quit the job or whatever and then burn the boats and go all in. But I think that there's so many ways to there's a million books on this, like 0 to 1 lean startup, whatever book you want to read, or whichever entrepreneur thought leader you want to subscribe to their ideology or their method. But there's a million ways to do it so that you don't have to quit and go all in. And that's really what I did with my show. And I think and by the way, most entrepreneurs that I know, they usually are building one company or they're working for a company, then they're starting something, or they're working for a company, then they start something on the side, or they're building one company, then they start a second company while they're building their first company. Like, I don't know too many people, again, outside of like the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world that were going to college, that are just have no work, nothing to do, and then they start building. I
But
don't think that's a smart way to build.
yeah, well, there's two ways, right? Like you do it young when you have no attachment and you're living in your parents'
Of
basement,
course, it's not
and
real to do it old
yeah,
though.
you use the garage as your startups
Yeah,
point, and you've got nothing to lose, and you just kind of go all in, and you're young, and it doesn't matter. Or if you're already in a career, and this is actually why I wanted to circle back to this, because it was something that kind of hit me in the beginning of our conversation, is this building a business while you're working for somebody else, and at least like flushing your ideas out. I think, to your point, at some point in time you have got to burn the boats,
yeah,
or you'll drown in mud.
100%.
But there is a lot of opportunity to be able to create something while you're somewhere else. um
And I
and
did, and
and
I
yeah,
did
and
with,
that's what you
yeah,
did, and that's what I love about it. And this and you're really honed into content, and this whole, I don't want to call it the new wave
new
of
media.
the new media, the
But it's
new
true, it
process,
is.
but it is true. And this is what I wanted to actually ask you about, because it hit me when we were early in the conversation. So it's just kind of actually a full circle loop back. Whereas where we are facing potentially the biggest disruption, since the industrial revolution.
Well, this is
In the
almost considered a new industrial revolution, right? The
Right, the
fourth
new
industrial revolution, right?
yeah, the fourth, or the
Yeah,
technological revolution. But this, like, there is going to be a massive amount of job disruption, and whether that is, the people who are listening, because we have business owners who listen, but we also have people who are aspiring business owners. But we also have business owners who are in a business that could be redundant in the very near future. Um, and they need to be aware of that. So then they need to be planning, well, what's the next thing without giving up
of
what you've
course.
got.
Yeah,
So there's some strategy here on a whole bunch of different levels. Or maybe it's that you have a really, really good business, but the competition's going to get thinned out. So now how do you capture that? Or how do you expand your business into a whole new revenue stream based on what's happening with technology? So I'm really interested in your thought processes on how people do this in this new age of content, this new age of AI. What's your experience been? And
well, so my experience is sort of from two perspectives. First of all, we're talking to a whole bunch of different people, so like let's go through all those different avatars that you just mentioned. So let's talk about the business owner that's worried about um, having their business disrupted. I'm a small business. I also have friends that have very large businesses, some that have exited for hundreds of millions, some that still run companies, some that run publicly traded companies. So the successful ones are disrupting themselves right now, meaning that they are trying to break and rebuild everything in their company with AI technology, and not just removing process, but like, how does AI impact our market, or how does AI impact our industry? And I think the most progressive ones are constantly trying to disrupt and innovate, but disrupt themselves before they get disrupted by someone else. On a much smaller scale, any small business owner has to find a way to not replace people with AI, but make every single person 10x, 100x more productive with AI. So this is something that I do in my business, where we are constantly researching and using and understanding the latest tools. And I haven't let anybody go. But now, instead of doing one podcast a week, I can do three. Instead of doing one newsletter a week, I can do a newsletter a day. Instead of doing, 3 pieces of content a day, I can do 30 to 50 pieces of content a day. But it's not just volume. It's volume, but maintaining the quality and maintaining the human component of content, for me at least, right? And all the other processes are obviously more efficient through AI. So it's augmenting your existing team for more and for better. Uh, I think that that's probably what every business owner should be thinking of. Um, I mentioned disrupting yourself. Well, actually, I said that the biggest businesses are doing it, but I'm also doing it. I'm trying to figure out, okay, if I'm going to disrupt myself, what does that look like for a content creator? It means, should I keep doing the same type of content? What's working, what's not? Should I find a way to leverage the newest and latest technology, AI, to create avatars that can create content for me? Maybe there should be some sort of Scott AI that can create content. It's not there yet, but it will be soon. It's about uh, figuring out, again, I was disrupting myself even before AI because I kept starting new content strategies and killing them. Starting that is the process of disruption, right? You always see what's out there. You're always scanning the market. You're seeing what content resonates the most, what's working right now. Long form podcast, it works, but it's a very difficult thing to grow. It's difficult to grow long form podcasts. So I'm like, okay, so if I'm going to disrupt my media company, what do I do? What's growing the quickest? That's, business, self-improvement, what type of content? Then I look at people like Simon Squibb or School of Hard Knocks, and they're doing some short form man on the street interview style. So I'm like, okay, let me try and do some of that too. Let me disrupt my core content thesis with some new style. And it's not like, listen, people are like, that's not total disruption. No, disruption is not like shutting down your business. Disruption is constantly evolving. That's all it is. And if you don't evolve, then eventually you'll turn into Blockbuster and somebody will be the Netflix, right? Bigger companies, um, I just see from the outside in. So I don't know exactly what every single person is disrupting, but the best entrepreneurs that I know and the best CEOs, they adopt an AI first, technology first disruption mindset, meaning that whatever we do right now, find a way to break it and build it back better with AI or some sort of tech. It doesn't always have to be AI either. I think that's a really important mindset to adopt. I think that those are probably the main ideas. I mean, if you look at Fiverr, if you look at Shopify, again, huge companies, their CEOs have gone on record saying, like, we will not hire anybody who does not lead with AI, who doesn't understand AI. So not just disrupting the existing organization, attracting the right talent that understands where you want your organization to go. That's also important. And I think that if you would just adopt some of these ideas and you apply them to your own business, you are already light years ahead of like 99% of entrepreneurs, to be quite honest. Like, I know that you're part of YPO. The average entrepreneur in YPO is probably more forward thinking than, mom and pop, family run business, been around for 50, 80 years. Uh, YPO, these are probably pretty normal conversations, but YPO is like a percentage after percentage of the amount of businesses that could be listening to this show. So if you have built a business, it's successful, you're in an industry that's kind of old or archaic, you may be like, well, what's going to happen with my textiles business, or what's going to happen with my manufacturing? Someone's going to come along with some new idea that is going to just blindside you if you aren't thinking like this already. So just because your business isn't tech or isn't sexy or isn't e-com or isn't media, like, you got to start incorporating these ideas. The other thing you mentioned is, how do you differentiate? Well, media, getting your name out there. If you know Naval Ravikant, he's, angel investor, writer. He tweets quite a bit, and he has is a great Twitter presence. But one of his most famous Twitter threads is the 4 kinds of leverage. And the 4 kinds of leverage that he writes about are finance, so capital; technology; human, meaning, you're hiring people; and then media. And the best businesses use all 4 kinds of leverage for growth. I think most people understand capital when it comes to business. They understand they need money to make money. They understand hiring people. They also understand technology, majority of them, but a lot of them shy away from media. Like, maybe we just got our customers knocking on doors or word of mouth referrals, and I don't need to, be known as a CEO or a founder, because nobody cares. Every industry, I don't care who you are or what you do, you will need to, or someone will become the known CEO or the known figure or the known personality or the known thought leader in your space, and will steal market share from you eventually. Maybe it won't be with your customers that you've had for the past 50 years. Maybe it'll be with people that are also new entrants into their market. But eventually, if someone's loud enough, even the customers that have been loyal to you will start to wonder, okay, is there a better option over there? Because someone's louder and more notable, and they have this perceived authority because they've built a brand around themselves. So I think that one way to stand out, and one way that a lot of the best CEOs are standing out now, is building a personal brand. And it's not like you have to be, a million followers. It's just talking about the things that your customers care about. I'll give you an example. One of my good friends, he's the CEO of EXP. His name's Leo Pareja. He's an incredible CEO. He's had exits in the past. Now he's leading this publicly traded company. And real estate is not known for being like a forward-looking industry by any means, but EXP is. EXP, they've done a couple different things that I think their counterparts have not traditionally done. I mean, they're all virtual. They've grown very quickly. They have like 86,000 agents, and in a very short period of time. The founder is Glenn Sanford, and I just look at them and I see what Leo's doing, which is building a massive personal brand around himself, around his thought leadership. They are turning EXP into a media-first company because he understands that just attracts attention. It attracts the attention of agents who are looking for a brokerage. It attracts the attention of people who are looking for their home, and all they've seen on their feed are either EXP agents or the CEO of EXP teaching them something about real estate or the market or how to sell your home or whatever it is. It's not like, listen, you're not going to be like a Gary V or like an Alex Ramosi. You don't need millions of followers, but he talks about the things that he knows, and very few other real estate brokerage CEOs are putting themselves on social media. So he's the one who captures the attention, and attention over time builds trust. So that's a perfect example. And you could apply that example to any industry. And there's lots of industries where nobody's doing it right now, or they're not doing it very effectively. But that is the one way to differentiate yourself and to continue to attract the right attention, so that even if an industry, you were mentioning something before about there's a good chance that some competition may be sort of hurt by AI and by all these different new technologies, and maybe there's only so many or maybe there's roll-ups or consolidation in an industry. Maybe, we never know where the future is going, but one way to guarantee that you stand out and people remember you exist and give you a better chance of surviving whatever happens in the future is attention. So I think that that's one thing that any CEO should take to heart. That would be my recommendation. We can go through the other groups of listeners too, but that for a business owner is probably the most hopefully useful information.
There's a lot to unpack here, man.
Go for it. Go for it.
So
who are the other people you mentioned? Business owners? You mentioned like employees, I guess, who want to start something.
Yeah, business owners, employees. I can't even actually remember what I got through there.
We did. I want to make sure that we touch on everything, because like just one point for the employees or the people that want to start companies or are in the sort of like the beginning stages of starting. We touched on this, but just to sort of reiterate and drive that point home, like you have all the education, all the wisdom, all the tools, all the technology, whether or not you're using OpenAI or Anthropic or some other AI tool, you have all the the agentic resources available to you where you can build with almost no money, really nothing except your time and your energy. And I'm just going to drop one more idea that's, I think, a really powerful idea. Then we'll go back to everything I discussed for CEOs. But for the solopreneur or entrepreneur or somebody who's just starting or in a company who wants to start a business, one of my favorite charts, and you can look this up and you'll see what I'm talking about, or maybe you can throw it on the screen if you want to, but it's a chart that shows the amount of people required to build a company that hits $1 million in revenue annually over time. So I'll make up numbers because I don't remember everything on that chart. But say in 1950, it was like 80 people or whatever. 94 is like 80 people to build a $1 million revenue company. And then say in 1970, it was like 30 people. And then like 1990, it would be like 5 people. And then fast forward to 2025, you can not only build $1 million company with one person. There are arguments to say that the first $1 billion company run by one person, we're not far off from that. So the point is that the resources are there. The capital constraints have been removed. There are no more gatekeepers. So for anybody who wants to build, go out, learn what you got to learn, use the tools that cost 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, whatever. And you can find a way to build an MVP that can get somebody to take out a credit card and pay for your product or service. And it takes no money, really. When I say no money, it takes less than like $100.
Yeah, I mean, I forget what the app was, but there's an app that was sold to one of the tech companies for over $1 billion, and they had like 10 to 15 employees, right? And so that is so doable now. And you're right, we are going to see $1 billion valuations out of 1-2 people kind of companies. Right? It is crazy. And then when I hear that stuff, I think, God, I have 500 employees. I'm like, I'm an idiot.
No, you're not. But it's like, you have to understand, okay, so with those 500 employees, like, how do I make sure that those 500 employees get 100x productivity out of each single one of them? Not by doing more work, but by using the technology.
That's the next step, right?
Yeah.
And I do want to circle back on a few things, just to capitalize for the listener, because you dumped a lot there that was so powerful. One of the things that I did want to go back to is, just as an aside, because I wanted to make sure I repeated the quote because I thought it was really, really good. Is, you said, be rigid in what you want, but be flexible in how you get there. And I think that is a really good core. And maybe we can talk about this too at some point in time, because I'm interested in your perspective, because you've interviewed so many successful people and you're successful at what you're doing. And it's like, it happens in the mind so often before it happens with boots on the ground. Like you've got to create this stuff, and the art of being flexible is really one of the strongest things that you can do as an entrepreneur, or I think as a person in a relationship and in a job, in your health. Like you have to maintain this flexibility. Um, we've used the word disruption a lot. I did write down one question. What are your thoughts of disruption versus innovation? Do you see it as similar, different? What's your take on that?
It's an interesting question. I think those two words are, I think those are very similar words, because I don't think that true innovation can happen without disruption. I don't believe that it can. I think that to truly innovate, even if you're not disrupting your own business, you're disrupting an idea, you're disrupting the status quo, you're disrupting an existing market, framework, methodology. Like, you're disrupting something, meaning you're literally saying what exists now is not the best or most optimal way to do it. Let's find a better way. I think that to innovate, you do have to disrupt something. I don't think innovation exists without saying, what are we replacing that is old and antiquated and outdated? So I like the word disruption, because innovation, I think people equate to like the Steve Jobs or the Mark Zuckerbergs or the Elon Musk or whoever your favorite entrepreneur is that has built something that is larger than life. And I don't want somebody who runs like a door manufacturing company to say, we're never going to innovate here. Doors are always going to be doors. And I think that innovation, the way that I interpret it, ties to creating this product that changes people's lives. But I think that's the wrong way to look at innovation. I think innovation is disrupting an idea or a thing we do every single day with a better way to accomplish that outcome. And that's why I like that word better, because that means that a door manufacturing company can disrupt their existing workflow for a better outcome. So they can disrupt themselves. They can be innovative within their organization. They don't have to create a door that's going to be, installed on a space station. You don't have to do that, but they should disrupt themselves, or somebody will come and take their lunch. So I think that that's why I like the word disruption over innovation, but I think that two are sort of married.
Synonymous
Yeah,
almost. It's interesting because the reason why I asked the question was because oftentimes as humans we get stuck on words.
we do. Yeah,
And
yes, we do.
I didn't want people who I was thinking about, the guy that's my age or whatever. Like disruption is to me kind of like a new word for innovation. There's
I
a
think
little
so.
bit of a difference. I think there's steps to it, but I think like, and then ultimately you kind of said it earlier at the very beginning of the podcast, is like one of the gifts that you got from your parents was curiosity.
1,000%.
And to be
Yeah.
able to ask questions. And I was like, the whole time you were like talking, I was thinking about business owners out there that have had their business for years, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to this AI stuff. I'm
Yeah.
going to disrupt my entire business." It's like that's not necessarily the message. You have to have the ability to question what you're currently doing,
Yeah.
how you could do it better. Like there's a slew of
Like,
questions.
what got you here won't get you there.
Yeah,
The way it's always been done is the most dangerous phrase in business. Like all of this,
all those stuff.
all of it. So,
Yeah.
so this is the thing. Like, if you are a semi-successful business owner, there's probably some recency bias there because you've just been running on autopilot in a comfort zone for a period of time. But you gotta like think back to when you first got this off the ground. And maybe you don't even know, because maybe this business was handed to you by your parents. Who knows, right? But if you got this thing off the ground, you did not do it in a conventional way. You did something that was, you know, outside your comfort zone. You did something that was a little bit different than what everyone else was doing. You did something more aggressively than what you were doing something, and you were giving a massive amount of energy towards this idea or this tactic that allowed you to take nothing and turn it into a business. But then, like all humans, we default to comfort zone, which is whatever. It's human nature. It's working. We're paying the bills. Life's good. We hired a team. Like, it's sort of running on autopilot now. I don't want to like mess with too much stuff, but you got to go back. Like, what took you from 0 to 1? Because right now there's a competitor that's doing and putting as much energy towards 0 to 1 in their own business that's coming after your market share. And all that you're hoping is that your customers are loyal enough not to go to them. That's what you're banking on. You're banking on your reputation, your time in the market, your customers being loyal, because now there's probably technology, tools, resources, processes, systems that are making the competitor product better, more efficient, cheaper, whatever. So you got to find a way. You got to find a way to disrupt yourself, meaning apply the same energy that took your business off the ground to where it is today. Apply that same energy to not reinvent, but just like care about your business as much as when you first started it. Care about researching what's new and what's up and coming. And if you don't have the energy to do it, like, maybe hire somebody who's younger, who has the energy, who has the passion, who understands the industry, but also maybe doesn't understand it at the same time, because then they can bring fresh ideas in. Like, I don't think that's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad idea at all to bring somebody who has, like, over time, a vested interest in becoming some sort of leadership in the business, and just bringing in a ton of great entrepreneurial ideas, like bringing that fresh blood, that fresh energy, and let them propose ideas that aren't going to blow up your business, obviously, but are going to make you like a little bit uncomfortable. And then test these ideas in a confined environment with like a customer, not your most valuable, but test these ideas, see if it works, see if it doesn't. That's disruption. It's not like you're blowing anything up. It's just like you're just always testing.
I think those are great words. And I look at it myself like I'm in that.
You do this?
I'm in that transition phase, right? I'm
Yeah.
55 years old now.
Yeah.
We've got some businesses, and I look at myself. I'm very hungry right now, but I also look, and you talked about the North Star, and we talked about begin with the end in mind. And as I look at like what's the next 10 or 20 years
Yeah.
look like for me, am I going to be less or more hungry in 10 years? Am I going to be less or more hungry in 20 years? I'm probably going to be less hungry. I'm probably going to be maybe not just less hungry, but I might not have the energy sources that I had. I might not
Yeah.
have, I might want to like spend more time vacationing, which I really don't spend any time vacationing. Like, but there are going to be some things that I'm going to probably want to do that I'm currently not doing or didn't do in the past. That if I do, it's going to take my focus away from the business. And
Yeah.
so, one of the models that we actually just have been working on the last 2 or 3 years is we are carving out a 10 to 20% ownership for people in our businesses that have that drive, desire, that new innovative way to look at things, that want to disrupt, that want change, because that's what got us to where we are, and it's we got to continue on with that. And the best organizations in the world that stand the test of time continue to innovate. The best
Yeah.
relationships
Yeah.
that I know of, like in their intimate relationships, are the relationships where they're innovating
1,000%.
and they're marketing, they're selling themselves. Like, I mean, I stay in shape for
Bro,
a couple of
you look
reasons.
good. You
Thank
have the
you.
shaker cup. You got like I see.
Yeah, look, I stay in shape for two reasons. One, most importantly, is I want to be healthy. I want to have vitality and health span for when I
Yeah.
have grandchildren.
Yeah.
Now that's the before it was like I want to look good on the beach, but now that's why I do it. But the other is that I'm marketing towards my wife. I want her to be, wake up
As
and
you
see
have
me
to.
brushing my teeth with my shirt off and go,
Yeah.
he looks pretty good.
As you have to.
And
Yeah.
and and so, I think that those are the kinds of things that you have to continue to innovate and market yourself. You have to continue to innovate and market your business. There was a question I had in here
I was
for
gonna
you.
say something.
Yeah,
One more
please.
idea
Yeah.
that has worked well for me. The best employees are entrepreneurs, but they're just in a different season of their life. So the best employees are the true A+ talent, the people that solve problems that you didn't even know you had, that always innovate, that always think outside the box, that bring ideas, that get frustrated when you don't try something new. Like they are entrepreneurs, but for whatever reason, being an entrepreneur is not right for them right now, which is fine. Everybody has different seasons of their life. So I think that those are the people that are going to do for your business what you're looking to do. If you had found these people and for whatever reason, they weren't, maybe they don't want to build a business from scratch. Maybe it's not the best financial, opportunity for them right now. But in a different world, in a different life, they'd be building, 10 million, 20 million, $50 million businesses, but it's just not for them right now. But if you find those people and you take them and you say, I already built something that works, there's security and safety, but opportunity for you to just unleash your mind. Those are the people that are really going to do what you're trying to do. But you got to also give them the safety, to like the psychological safety, to bring ideas into the business, because a lot of business owners talk a lot and they're like, oh, it would be great to have somebody young and bring some new ideas. And then the second they go in, they find the right person, and then everything is just shut down,
Yeah,
shut down,
they
shut
shit
down.
on every
A
idea they
hundred
bring to them.
percent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that
It's
won't work. We tried that.
100%.
Yeah.
And then that person's going to go find another business. They're going to go elsewhere, right? That's a talented person and you're wasting that person. So you also got to listen, self-awareness is also a very important trait. And I think that if you don't have a little bit of self-awareness and you don't trust other people because you're like, this is my baby, you're like holding it so tight, at the end of the day, you're just going to suffocate it.
I want to go back to a couple of things, and the reason why I want to go back to them, I just frame the why for the listener, is that the I was reading an article. The three biggest concerns out there right now are cost of living, joblessness, and people's reduction in standard of living. We're facing a time now in business where the the biggest shift in wealth is going to occur because baby boomers are going to be selling their businesses or shuttering their businesses. And that when they look at their business and they're like, I'm not, I'm, that's the next leap. Like, I'm just going to get rid of the business because I've got my cash flow. Or they're going to maintain their business and live off their cash flow until they get disrupted. And we're also, marry this with a post COVID transition where, you know, the stock market's doing well, the economy not as well, and technology will keep us afloat. But there's a lot of businesses that are struggling from a post-COVID kind of environment. And the reason why I frame this, guys, is because we're seeing this upswing in technology that's going to make us more efficient and more productive. Like you had mentioned, 10 to 100x is what we should be targeting. 10x, I agree, like is the minimum. Um, but so we're going to see a ramp of technology, which will make things more efficient. But we're seeing a fall in these other indicators, which is going to create a pretty big gap. Which that gap could be a massive opportunity, and it could also be a death trap.
But it's always both, right?
It's always both.
The worst periods in history are also the biggest opportunities. So it's just a matter of, I mean, it's unfortunate, but yes, whenever there's like COVID, a lot of people made a lot of money. So what do you do with that? Well, I don't know. It's very simple to say, be the person who takes advantage of the opportunity. It's very easy to say that. I know that's not reality for everybody, but that's the easy thing to say. I think that if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably already skewing on the right side of the fence. If you're listening to conversations like this, if you understand that even if things don't work out perfectly, if you have the right group of people around you, if you learn the right skill sets, you are increasing the likelihood of you coming out of this in the best possible way. You're creating your own luck at the end of the day. So whatever happens, good or bad, you know the skills, you know the technology, you know how to apply those skills to your existing business, or if that doesn't work, the next business. You find a way to always contribute value to the market in the most efficient way possible. And I think that you'll end up in a good spot. I think that people that, which I think the majority probably, I'm going to back up and explain one idea, which I think is a very powerful idea. Then I'll explain how it ties into this. So one idea I speak about a lot of is the idea of locus of control. So locus of control is a concept. There are two types of locus of control. There's external locus of control, and there is internal locus of control. External locus of control, it's a mindset. It means that you believe that the world happens to you, life happens to you, COVID happened to you, you got fired, the company was a shitty company, you got dumped, your partner was a shitty partner. The world happens to you. And it's not like you're completely avoiding responsibility, but it's pretty close. Yeah. Internal locus of control means that you believe that you happen to the world. So you have ownership over everything. You got dumped. Even if the person was shitty, there's probably like a couple red flags that I could have seen ahead of time that would have stopped me from even getting involved with this person. The company fired me. Well, maybe it wasn't warranted, but over the past 2 years while I was working for a company, did I kind of just like coast, or was I going above and beyond? Or even if I was going above and beyond and the company fired me, in my spare time, was I learning skills that would have made me more employable and let me get back on my feet quicker? So this whole concept of external versus internal, everybody who I know who's successful, doesn't mean they're always successful. Doesn't mean they've never been dirt poor or really ate shit in their business and things haven't worked out. But it does mean that they take ownership. And funny enough, most of those people end up in pretty good positions at some point in their life when they take ownership over every single thing that happens, good or bad, in their life. So why I'm telling you about these two concepts is because I think that the majority of people that blame and have an external locus of control and believe that life happens to them, they don't happen to life. By adopting that mindset, you do not gravitate towards the actions in your life that will set you up for success and help you manufacture luck. If you believe that everything that happens in your life, you have to take responsibility for, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? It doesn't matter what happens. I got to figure out a way to navigate it because I am the only one who's responsible for everything that happens, good or bad, in my life. And knowing that, I'm going to learn the shit. I'm going to take the action. I'm going to call the person. I'm going to do the thing that's going to guarantee the best possible chance of success, as opposed to just sitting in misery and just hating the world for, dealing me a shitty hand. So I think that the people that switch from external locus of control to internal locus of control, and they live that way, that's the way they approach the world, that's the lens that they adopt, I think they have the highest likelihood of having a positive outcome, even in the worst possible environment. So everybody I know people whose business went under during COVID and they had a really tough time getting back on their feet. I also know people whose business went under during COVID or didn't even go under, but they saw the opportunity and they were like importing masks from China and wherever else they make masks. And they were like using their warehouses that were for e-com products to like bulk sell them. And they made millions of dollars in like a 2 or 3 year period. So the same thing happened to both people. What's the difference? Really? And again, people are going to be like, that's too black and white. Like there's all these different things that happen. Like, how can I focus on, yeah, I get it. The world's not fair. Life isn't fair, but you live once, so figure it out.
Well, it's mindset, right? It's the mindset that you approach stuff with, but it's also predicting the road ahead.
Yes.
And one of the things like I want to go back to, and I believe the quote was this that you said, and I thought it was, I got like stars around it here. But attention over time builds trust. Was that the quote? Yeah. And so I wanted to drill down a little bit because as you were explaining the media first company, like that whole concept.
By the way, that's
of media.
also another way to hedge against anything that happens in the world.
Well, that's why I want to. Yes, that's why I want to touch base on it, because I think it was a huge distinction for me, in that nobody knows exactly what the road ahead looks like, or sorry, nobody knows exactly what the road ahead is going to be.
For sure, for themselves, for the world, for anything, for their business.
But you can read the tea leaves
100%
and go, huh, something's coming. Like you have to really bury your head in the sand to not see. And I think there are a lot of people who are doing this. But as you were talking about media and building a media first company, there's so many businesses out there, and I like to knuckle things down to some of the most simple things that we use on a daily basis: restaurants, lawn care, gas, a service station, like all these business. There's a ton of businesses out there that you service customers every single day. Laundromats, like all kinds of stuff, where you have an opportunity today to start building, that attention media mechanism. And like, you're a pro at it. So I would love to just kind of.
It's a lot of trial and error, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's what makes you a pro, right?
True.
Pros get paid to practice.
Yeah.
And they do it over and over and over again. And like, you go read the stats on Stephen Curry from or Michael Jordan. Go any athlete, just go read any of their stats and go like, how many free throws does Stephen Curry shoot over the course of his lifetime? And not just his lifetime, still, like, I think he shoots 500 a day.
Does he still?
Still, from the 3-point line.
That's why he's so good.
And that's why he's so good.
Yeah.
And that's why he's got the best percentage of 3-pointers in the game ever, I think in the history of the game. And that's not an accident. And so I don't think there's any accidents here. And I'm just really curious, if you would like pick an industry, pick a type of business, whatever, I'd be curious, like, what would your advice be for a business owner around building content for their business? What would be some of the strategies that they could build from a media perspective?
For sure. And it's such an important idea, that if you do build attention and you do it for a long enough period of time, you will have trust. And if you don't believe me, I mean, there are people that have hit rock bottom. Some business owners, but there are people that have hit rock bottom. Actually, we'll talk about, I think you're friends with her, Molly Bloom, right? Mm-hmm. So look she was indicted. I don't think she served jail time, but she had listen, that's about when you're getting indicted, I don't care if you serve jail time or not, like, you got to reevaluate your life choices. And it's not like that's like the peak of her career, but she had a great story. There was a movie made about her. she has attention, she has trust. And now I just learned, actually, after listening to your podcast with her, that she does motivational speeches on integrity. So now she has a career. I mean, she almost like went to jail for lack of integrity. For
She
yeah.
built the largest criminal
Yeah.
enterprise.
But I mean, but she has attention, and that leads to opportunity. Another example, and I don't want to ever put people in categories, I'm just naming names. Jordan Belfort. So Jordan Belfort did go to jail, and he owes, I think, upwards of 100 million. I don't even know the total amount of restitution for whatever he was charged with and indicted with and sentenced for. But he does very well for himself now. He has attention. I'm not saying that that's the avatar that you should go after, but I'm saying that he's not hurting because he has attention. So just think, if somebody who has gone to jail for fraud can still have he lives very good, lives very, very good now because of attention. So imagine what that can do for your business. If somebody who's gone to jail for fraud can still build a career. For the average business owner, they don't need to be God forbid, you're not going to jail to get a Netflix documentary made about you so that you can that you can have attention. All you got to do is pick up your phone and record. It's basically that. That's where you start. A couple ideas that will really help. The same amount of energy and time and research that went into starting your business should go into your content at some point, not right away, but you do want to give it the time and attention it deserves. Your first version of content's always going to suck, but that's okay. That's how you start. If you go to any creator, if you don't trust me, you don't believe me, go to YouTube, go to any creator. If they haven't deleted their videos, you can sort their videos by oldest to newest on YouTube. It's the one platform that lets you do that. And you can see their first piece of content. And across the board, every creator will tell you that it sucks and that they hate it, but that's part of the game. So sucking at the beginning is where you start. Everybody does. And know that and be okay with that. And through the process of sucking and creating, you will get better. You will learn. You can also do a couple things like study, research. You didn't start a business without studying and researching your market. So why would you create content without studying and researching who's creating content and what hits and what are the trends? Doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours, but like consume a little bit of content so that you understand what you're doing. And then again, you're scaling a business. I'm just using all the business lessons for content because they're the exact same. And I don't know why people would ever think it's any different, but you're building content, you're creating content for your business. Just like when you built a business, you look at data, you see what works, you see what doesn't. You send an email campaign, you see the open rates, shitty. Okay, let's change the subject line. Let's change the copy. Let's change the CTA. Okay, now we have a 30% open rate. Now we get 5 meetings booked. Like, you look at the data, you A/B test, you iterate, you improve. The same should be said for content. You put out a whole bunch of pieces, whether or not it's Twitter. I'll tell you my process in a second. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcasts. Look at the ones that perform, and you're like, why did that perform? Why did that email work? Why did that sales rep close on that call? Why? Just ask questions, and then that answer should guide your content decision. So I mentioned before that a lot of the content I put out, I've killed. I've killed ideas, I've killed content styles, I've killed different strategies because it wasn't working. Now, the content that performs the best, actually, let me back up. My strategy for testing which content performs the best, I first have to find an environment where I can test at scale. It's very hard to test podcasts at scale, meaning recording for 60 minutes, editing, posting. That's a lot of work to test, right? That means I get one podcast. That's not efficient. So what I do is I do about 10 to 20 different tweets or threads per day on different ideas, 200 to 300 characters. One of those 10 to 20 different threads is where I get the most organic reach. One of those will have outsized performance. So thread 1 through 9 will have 20 to 30 to 50 likes, and thread 10 will have 5,000 likes. Okay, light bulb. Why does that idea work so well? Something about the way it's phrased, something about the idea just resonates with the market being my audience. Take that piece of content and then I turn that into a talking point that I'll bring up on a podcast. I'll turn it into a solo episode that you'll see on the 10-minute mindset podcast. I'll turn it into a newsletter. I'll turn it into a graphic. I'll turn it into a short form video that I'll script and post on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts. So I have this testing environment with where I can basically, with no effort and energy, not a lot of effort and energy compared to producing a video, test a ton of different ideas. It's very forgiving. And then I take those ideas and then I use that to turn it into my long form, more labor intensive, time consuming content. And that's my process. Anybody can steal that process. It works very, very well. Figure out a process that works for you, but that's mine. I'll give you another process that I know other people use. Again, it's all about, because again, creating content is time consuming and you want it to have ROI for your business, meaning that you want the content you create to actually generate leads, revenue, whatever your KPI is. Say you don't like writing tweets for whatever reason, even though I find it to be a very easy way to test ideas. Graham Stephan, he's a big finance YouTuber. His content testing strategy is to sit down, record a whole bunch of short form video. He posts all of them on TikTok because TikTok is another very forgiving platform. When I say forgiving, I mean that each piece of content is judged independently of the others. Whereas if you have a piece of content that flops on YouTube, or a piece of content that actually, I'll use YouTube as an example because Instagram is sort of unknown how the algorithm works. But if a piece of content flops on YouTube, it kind of penalizes the next piece of content. So if it doesn't do well, then the next one doesn't do as well. There's a lot of reasons why, but ultimately you don't want to test on a platform that penalizes poor content. TikTok does not penalize poor content. Adam Mosseri has also said that Instagram does not penalize poor content, but I don't know if that's 100% true, but TikTok for sure. Each piece is judged independently. So if I upload 100 reels, 100 TikToks, short form video, it doesn't matter if 99 of them suck, the 100th one can still hit. I can upload 100 tweets, 100 threads, 99 of them suck, one of them can still hit. That's a great way to test ideas. And then if you do the Graham Stephan short form video strategy, then you can take the one TikTok that works and you can post it on Instagram. You can post it on YouTube Shorts. You can post it wherever you want to post it. But just have some sort of testing strategies. You can test your ideas, test the messaging. I think that the biggest issue that I see business owners, very experienced business owners, probably with a little bit of an ego, because we all have a little bit of an ego. But what they do wrong with content is they say, I like this idea. I'm smart. I'm sure it's going to do well. I know the most about lawn care. I'm going to write this tweet about lawn care. I'm going to film this video about lawn care. I am God's gift to lawn care. So how could it not do well? But you don't understand that you are not everyone. And even though you may understand your customer, social media gives the most incredible testing ground for different messaging and like just constant messaging and iteration. So I'm just telling you, don't just assume that the way you want to communicate is the way your customer wants to be spoken to, especially on social media if you don't know that game. So find a way to test it. Communicate with the customer in 10 or 20 different ways. One of them will resonate more than the others. That's what you double down on. And on top of that, social creates this great environment for you to very cheaply test messaging that you can now use in your paid. You can use that really good, high performing, organic creative. You can use that in your paid ads. And then really, if that messaging keeps resonating, man, use that on your website, use that in your customer conversations, because now you've just created this testing ground where you figure out which messaging works at scale. And that's what social gives you. It gives you the opportunity to, of course, build a brand and build a business and create revenue and generate leads. But it also gives you this like really non-threatening way to test out how you message your customers and what resonates with them. And this is another idea about disrupting, because a CEO is going to say, well, I don't want to update my website copy. I don't want to update what my sales reps say on sales calls because it's always worked. I'm like, great, but if a piece of content hits, why don't you test it with one ad set? Why don't you test it on one call? Why don't you just test it with one customer and see if it resonates? Like this is the opportunity. So you're using the content you're creating to potentially point your company in the right direction. And maybe the thing that's working is working. But what if the content performs as an ad set like 5% better? Or what if the closing rate, if the customer brings up this one particular idea that you tweeted out that you've never thought of speaking about on a customer call, what if that increases your close rate by like 2%? What is that worth to you? But you won't know because you won't try it. So I'm saying, like, all these ideas are starting to blend together, but content's not a silo. It should benefit your business, So this is how you do content properly, but also just don't think of content as content. Think about it as like a very strategic resource for everything else that you do. And I think it can bring you into the future because it is the closest thing to a customer conversation you can have at scale outside of like sitting down for a coffee with them. So that's why everybody, every business owner ever, they should at least start in the content game for all those reasons I just mentioned and more. But
And most people don't because there's not enough leverage yet.
yeah, and they're like, well, if I put out a piece of content, what does that make me? I'm like, you're thinking about it wrong. First of all, with the tools, it should cost you nothing to put out content. It should be a bit of your time and energy. I get it.
But you can hire
You can
somebody.
hire somebody to do that too.
One of your staff.
Yeah. But they're always like, well, if I run a Facebook ad set, then I can check in 24 to 48 hours what my ROAS is. I get it. But you understand that if you put out one piece of content that hits, you could not put enough ad spend behind a piece of creative on Facebook or on Google to achieve that same escape velocity of that content. Like a piece of content that hits because of algorithm, you can, if you get the right piece of content, you test it, it resonates, you can hit 10,000, 500,000, 5 million people. What would that cost you on Facebook to hit 5 million people for free? It doesn't exist. It's impossible. It's a fake question. It doesn't exist. You can't do that. Right. So why not? Why not? And if it already costs you virtually nothing, whether or not you hire somebody or you give somebody tools to help you create content, again, with all the AI and the resources and the SaaS that we can use for our business, it just seems like it's such an obvious way to build a brand, to make yourself unforgettable, and to potentially just take your business to the next level. But I don't think people see it that way because they put out one piece of content that's something that they believe in. It flops and they're like, well,
See, it doesn't work. We tried that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious, what do you think the timeline is between the influence of AI into content creation
Mm-hmm.
and growth and market penetration or consumer penetration? What do you think the timeline is before I'll pick the restaurant industry? You got a community of 10,000 people, and there's 5 nice restaurants that you would go to, and when do you what's the timeline that it's going to take for all that influence to move into the direction where one of those restaurants harnesses the full capability and takes 50% of the market share from the other 4?
I think it's already happening. Like any of the things we spoke about today, technology, media. I was at a conference last week in Texas, and I was speaking to somebody who was a sponsor, and he was doing all the food and bev for the conference. And he's actually an owner of about 50 different restaurants. And he was just running an idea by me, which I thought was incredible. He was saying, I started a podcast speaking about the restaurant industry, but I don't just want to stop at mine. I want to become like the media channel for restaurants. So I want to speak about somebody running food trucks, and I want to speak about somebody that like a chef. I want to have all these different personalities in the restaurant industry. So he has money, very successful entrepreneur, and he is building out basically like a network of restaurant creators. And he wants to be the household name media network, and he wants to be teaching everything about restaurant and food, and he's building that himself right now. Like as of last week, he'd already started like about a month before. So I mean, media is already touching restaurants. Real estate, super legacy, outdated industry. Bigger Pockets is a media brand for real estate. They have all these different personalities. They have, the fix and flip, the real estate investor, the finance guy, whatever. Like they have, I'm sure they probably have like 10 plus personalities, all these different podcasts, YouTube channels, and they're all talking about real estate all under one roof. And I'm pretty sure Bigger Pockets actually sold to private equity for a pretty good sum. So media there's already smart, ambitious people that are figuring out how to take media to all these different industries, and they will become the name. So that restaurant guy, what's going to happen? Well, whenever he wants to open a new restaurant, he can push people to it because he has eyeballs, and he's never going to have a hard time raising money ever again for any restaurant. because his investors are going to be in his audience. He's saying, I want to take a concept that blew it out of the park because we had, 5 influencers that are on my network that just, opening weekend, it was like standing room only. Well, the second you say that, every single person, every single investor who's a restaurant investor, who's in his game, in his world, they're people, they listen to podcasts, they want to kill time. So they're like, well, I want to learn a little bit about my work. I want to just consume content about restaurants and investing and all these different things. So they stumble upon, his podcast or one of his network's podcasts. They hear an ad about how one of his new restaurants is doing. They go down the rabbit hole. They figure out that he's actually an investor. He has 50 restaurants. He's opening a 51st. They're like, take my money. Like, I'm the only one. You're the only person who I know who's investing in restaurants. Like, I could go find deals. I guess I have some friends that do it, but like, you've built trust with me because you've been grabbing my attention for an extended period of time, and I want to put money into your next restaurant. So I'm talking about media, not AI, but I'm just saying, like, media is also going to be highly disruptive to a lot of industries. If you look at down in Miami, you look at David Grutman and the celebrities, old, sort of like a traditional form of media and attention, but still media and attention. He brings celebrities to all of his openings, all of his restaurants, whether or not it's Komodo or Gecko or Poppy Steak or whatever the restaurant is. You see the who's who in that restaurant. And if I'm not mistaken, first of all, every restaurant he opens up is like, it's a success, because you see in Miami, restaurants open and close, like open and close, they go out of business. His don't go out of business. And if I'm not mistaken, I was looking at a ranking of the highest grossing restaurants in the US, and I'm pretty sure like 2 or 3 of his are on that list. Like, just an insane amount of revenue coming in from these restaurants because of media and attention. And he gets that game better than most restaurant group owners. So that's one example. Where is AI? Where is robotics? I mean, it's already happening too. I don't think it's happening as much in North America, but we're already having like little food delivery robots. I mean, there's restaurants in parts of Asia that I've seen that have like robot servers. And AI is just about efficiencies. So, I mean, all the back end of the restaurant now will be optimized through AI. There'll probably be dynamic pricing based on different parts. Like, I mean, it just makes everything easier, right? It just makes everything easier. So now you can get the most amount of revenue from your customer depending on time of day or geographical location. I mean, they could have a million different things that they could optimize with AI. They would be very time consuming and labor intensive to do with a human team, right? You could have a dynamic menu that changes based on the time of day. That would be very hard to do if you just had like a human team in a restaurant that would be like pricing things, and they wouldn't, I mean, AI is just aggregating tons of data. And data drives the world. Data drives decisions. I mean, this is why airlines make so much money, because they can update in real time the pricing. So, because they have massive amounts of data that they can use. I mean, now what AI does is it allows any business in the world to use that level of data infrastructure to optimize whatever it is they're doing, and then also optimize tasks. I don't know, like, it's already happening, but at a level where people really feel it, a year, 2 years.
Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or a coworker who could benefit from the conversation, please share the link via text or on social media. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. We'll see you next week.
The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Dwayne Kerrigan and his affiliates. Dwayne Kerrigan or the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast is not responsible for and does not verify the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified professional or specialist before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.